the best thing you can really do is bet on yourself in holding yourself accountable. Like I'm a huge believer in self-development, continuous learning, staying curious. Like that has really allowed me to do everything that I've done because I've never stopped learning. And I'd listen to books and podcasts and stuff all the time.
Step into the world of success with Your Brand Amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. This is an issue that so many of us deal with, Paden: taxes, planning correctly for our small businesses so that we don't get into trouble because we're not filing things on time, we're not paying the right taxes, depending on how complex our business structure is. So Paden Squires, I'm really excited to have you on to talk about and unravel these issues for us. We are in Q4 and thinking about building our organizations, but also going from building them to then going into the C-suite and acting as CEOs of our organizations, all of the different things that we need to consider. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on here and maybe share a little information.
Yeah. So talk to us about your interest. Have you always been a numbers guy, always interested in financial planning, wealth planning?
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit of my story. So I grew up in central Missouri, pretty rural area. I'm located in Columbia, Missouri now. But I grew up even in a tiny little town outside of Columbia, Missouri. I grew up in single mom household, some financial insecurity around some of that stuff. I remember as a kid, my mom losing her job and being like, hey, oh my gosh, what's going to happen kind of thing. And that was burned in my head as like a 10-year-old, of just kind of like financial insecurity a little bit. Right. So I knew that as a kid, I never wanted that. Right. I never wanted to be poor. And it's as unnoble of a probably as a motivation that is. It was my motivation, right? And so, ultimately that led me in, after getting out of high school, going into college and studying finance and accounting and getting into money. And it was always attractive to me because I wanted to, how do you make money? How do people make money? And those kind of things. So, I studied that all through college, really fell in love with it, ended up getting my MBA. Ended up working a couple corporate jobs, quickly found out that was not the mold for me whatsoever. I lasted a couple years in some different corporate jobs and got the heck out of there. So I ended up getting my CPA and really just opening up my own firm and out of my living room in 2014. And now I've kind of grown it into what it is today with the team and everything we got going on. So it's kind of my journey in a nutshell. But yeah, I mean, when you say interested in money, I've been interested in money a long time, and that's to learn a lot about it.
Yeah, and I do think that your story is not uncommon. Depending on how we grew up, it makes us want to strive for more, make sure that we're shoring up our own financial futures and that we're not dependent on anybody else. So all signs point to making sense for why you became an entrepreneur and also wanted to help other people with the same issues that you grew up with.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Like, we get to come into all kinds of different situations. Typically my situation is with entrepreneurs, but we come in all kinds of situations and help add value and help people structure things and just how can we grow our net worth or ultimately whatever your goals are. And how can we do that like in the most tax efficient way and just the most efficient way possible.
Yeah. And I will say I've probably done all of the wrong things in different businesses that I've built, thought more about paying other people before paying myself, right? Counted on money coming in before it did. And then
spent the money before it came in, right?
Yep. Yeah. I was spending it on team members, thinking I had agreements, or a client loses a big grant or funding and can't pay you for the work that they owe you for. I've been in all of those situations.
Been in several of those myself.
Well, and I want to talk about that because helping other people with strategy is different sometimes than looking inward, helping yourself become that CEO of your own business.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. When you went on your own, what were some of the things that you said, oh, I know I'm really good at doing this for other people, but I need to remember to do it for myself?
Yeah. Kind of when I opened up my business, I didn't didn't have any clients, right? I just had to go figure out how to find clients. So I had a lot to learn about business in general. Like I knew the money part, I knew how to do accounting. Like I knew like it's kind of like I don't know, like a dentist, right? A dentist can is great at being a dentist, but then it's like, okay, well, if you're a dentist that also owns the practice, like there's a whole other set of skills here, right? Like you're not just an operator, right? So I was good to be like an operator, like I could do all the things, or I could do like the work, right? It was just like I didn't really know much about running a business or like all the things like sales and marketing and operations and like and for years it took me years to figure out a lot of that stuff. And to be quite honest with you, like when I the first probably 5 years of my business, I kind of was running a solo practice, very much not thinking very big, not trying to do much, I guess I would say, other than just have my business make a little bit of money. I thought it was I just sit here and make some money, and I can nobody's really going to pay attention to what I'm doing, and I'm good, right? Like it wasn't until later, so I started getting around other entrepreneurs. I really started getting into communities and figuring out how do you run a business, how do you build a business, and started to get a little bigger visions for myself, as well when getting in some of those rooms.
Yeah, yeah. So, how did you grow your business? How did you go from being a solopreneur, figuring out how to get your first clients, to having a team, being really well established now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a lot of trial and error at first. Like you said, most of these people listening here can skip. You listen to me and skip a bunch of these steps. And that's why I love shows like this, is because you can, somebody can listen to this and like skip 5 years of the mistakes I made.
Yep.
So, in the beginning, it was, I'm a relational guy. I'm good at talking to people and building rapport and stuff. And so it was really just all word of mouth. Like all I ever focused on was giving everybody a good experience, and it was quick and fast. And, even in the beginning when I had no confidence, I would even just undercut price. Like I would just do whatever to make money. Right. And so I just hustled for years, like, because I didn't know any
Mhm.
way else. So I took care of clients for a long time, and that referral business, and then ultimately getting reviews and stuff online. Like Google reviews are massive. It took me like 6 years in business before I asked any of my clients for a Google review. Don't
Mhm.
do
Yeah,
that.
don't do that, don't do that.
It's stupid, right? Stupid. And then amazingly enough, once I emailed all my clients, I got like 50 of them overnight. And then all of a sudden you start, then the phone starts ringing, right? Because you stand out online. But like I would say in the last 5 or 6 years is where I really started understanding, appreciate marketing and sales, and how you actually having processes there and a sales process, and I never really took any of that serious for years. It was just like, hey, I show up, I do taxes, and people pay me. And so it was a process, right? In the beginning, it was just really personal networking. And then in later years, I'm really getting into, social proof's a huge thing, like reviews, Google reviews, all those things. Anything, ask your best clients to review you, right? I mean, taking advantage of that. Social proof's massive. And then ultimately, I've really got, and then I've gotten into all kinds of other different marketing tactics, whether, I do why my podcast doesn't specifically focus on, tax planning and stuff. It's entrepreneurship type shows, similar to this. And, that's kind of a marketing funnel, build authority. And, I'm doing a lot of other marketing stuff, creating content, or a lot of organic content and stuff. And that's kind of where I'm at today, and growing my business. It's still, I'm still professional services. It's a lot of one-on-one relationships. So there's still a whole lot of shaking hands and meeting cool people and bringing them in as clients.
Yeah, and that is the dilemma, right? Because you're doing the marketing, you're the face of the company, you do have a podcast, you're also going out meeting people, but then you also need to still know everything that's going on in the world of, taxes and benefits and, strategic advice that you can give, and, it can be hard to turn that over to somebody else, to your team sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something I've done a lot of the last few years, of kind of like some of that transitioning, right? I got other guys that are fantastic that work for me, and in transitioning some of the clients and whatnot to maybe, I'm not the best fit for them, or and it needs, maybe transition to other people on my teams. And you know some people like that. Some people have no issue with it. Other people kind of push back on some of that stuff, and it's it is what it is. But It is. It took me a long time too, as like a control freak, to let some of that stuff go, right? And yeah, you do have to learn to be okay with some of that stuff, right? And I've had people tell me it's like somebody can do something, call it 80% as good as you can. You need to let them do it. And that's the only way they can get the extra 20% or so. But if it's like, quickly, if you're growing a business of any significance, like, you can't do everything. you just
Right.
you just can't. And if you end up doing 10 different things, like, all of them are going to be not great. They're all going to be like, okay, and you keep the balls up in the air, but none of them are going to be right fantastic. So it's being brave enough, having the faith to step out, hire people, get around other people that have those skills that can plug into your kind of, I would say, your weaknesses, right, to support you. And that way you can focus on, what your genius is, what you're best at, right, and just run in that area, and then get support in all the others.
Yeah. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges you see facing businesses right now? Because I feel like there's so much complexity with states, right? Federal, depending on what kind of company you have, supply chain, taxes for imports, exports. If you're an international business, there are so many different things we have to factor in. Do you have employees? Do you have contractors? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's never been easier to, like, start and run a business and do your own thing than it ever has been before, right? Now, at the same time, there's a lot of complexities too. And if you're running a business of any size, right, like, yeah, there's a million different things that you should be concerned about, and a million different things that you don't even know that you should be concerned about, right? And so some of the complexities of business can be tough, and in many ways the regulatory environment doesn't necessarily get better year to year. Like, in my world, like, every year the tax forms have more boxes on them, more things, like, they want more information, you know what I mean? Like, it just becomes more, reporting becomes more and more of a thing to do. And that's another argument, or another conversation for another day, of like how much resources we waste on just complying with things, and instead of being productive from an economic standpoint, conversation. But and from why my geniuses are, where I focus is in tax and money. Where I see a lot of business owners struggle in those areas, it's just not knowing what's going on inside their own business, inside their own money, right? Nothing surprise like it's not uncommon for me to come into a multi-million-dollar revenue business and their books to be a disaster. Like just not, they're okay, but they're not, like, they're not, the owner is not getting good information, not getting information to be able to, like, make strategic decisions. And I see that all the time. And it's really like the biggest struggle I see business owners with money, and that is they just don't even know what's going on. Like, they don't really have their finger on the pulse of what is actually occurring. They can kind of speak in big generalities, but then it's like, well, no, what's actually the numbers? And they can't, they can't tell you that, right? And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of businesses in the beginning are set up to fail, right? Because they don't even do the math. They don't do the math of, like, oh, I'm opening up this retail shop. I got, this kind of overhead. Maybe I can get this, 30% margins on everything I sell. Like, okay, well, how much revenue do you have to do in a month just to break even? Like,
Yeah.
have you done that math? And a lot of people haven't. I mean, they just haven't. And you can open up a business without doing that math, and get yourself in trouble, for sure. And I've seen it lots of times. So it's really just coming into things eyes wide open and understanding it. I think is, most, well, it was like 90% of small businesses don't last more than 5 years or something. It's about that, right? And it's cash flow problems is the main reason.
Yeah. Well, are you seeing more small businesses move towards AI to streamline processes, have less overhead, or VAs or team members overseas? Because I know for my business, I do have team members in the US, mostly interns and a few contractors, and then I have people overseas as well. Because I'm just rebuilding. I'm actually just starting a new business. This is October is my second month of doing
That's
podcast
great.
production
That's
for other
great.
people.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So I want to, I'm trying to go in differently than when I had other companies or when I had my PR firm during the pandemic and wanted to be nice and hire everybody and give them full-time salaries. And then I had to realize, oh, I have people in 5 states. That's really complex.
Yeah, just even like no joke, if you have employees in like 5 states and just even the amount of like quarterly payroll tax return. Yeah, I mean, you have to do them in each state, like, you know what I mean? And it can be, and depending on what states those are, some of those states are even, we can talk about California, that, you know what I mean? Like that's one of the, they come after you for everything. And so, you know what I mean? Even depending on what state you're in too, it can even be more complex. But yeah, it's very easy to get things very complex. And to go back to your point of like AI and virtual assistants and stuff, yeah, absolutely. I do it myself. I have an amazing my executive assistant Nicole is in the Philippines. She is amazing, top notch assistant. And we work totally remote, and she keeps me from looking bad all the time. So it's yeah, and so she's amazing. And in between that and like, yeah, AI, AI is world changing. We have no idea. I mean, I can't even tell you what the year, what's going to look like 2 years. Like it's that, I mean, stuff will change that fast. I mean, even what they did a release earlier this week where it was like image generation now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just bonkers, like bonkers real. And yeah, you can hardly tell it's not. I mean, you can kind of tell, but it's almost there.
Amazing.
And the amazing thing to think about is like, okay, this is the worst it's ever going to be, right? Like it's only going to get better, right? And yeah, like for me, just even, yeah, I'm seeing lots of clients do that because it's just so valuable. Like for me, like we use AI all the time, right? It's meeting notes for us. We're always with clients and having, calls kind of like this on like a Teams meeting, and having AI and a note taker there. I don't ever have to remember anything. Like, it used to be I'm like writing down, I'm kind of listening to you, I'm writing down, taking notes, and oh, well, she told me that, but I didn't get it written down. Let me reach out to her. I got to ask her what she said. And now I have transcripts of everything. And not only have transcripts, the cool thing is like AI, we have an AI note taker. Let's say you're a client of mine and you're on the call. Well, you're already in my CRM system. So the AI notes immediately just shoot right into under your contact in my CRM. Anybody on my team can go to you in my CRM and see, okay, what's going on with Annika? What was like the last call was about? Even like a query there, you can ask, it's like, what did her and Paden talk about? and it spits it all right out. And it allows for us, we're in kind of like the customer service, like professional services world, allows us to just give people like world-class service, right? It's like, hey, how's your daughter doing? We talked about her last time, and just stuff like that, right? And we're just being humans with each other.
100%. I love that.
Yeah.
Truly. That's where we get those connections. That's where we figure out who we really want to work with and who might not be a great fit. Like you said earlier, you said you refer business out sometimes.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
So, yeah. All the time. Okay, well, we won't go into those stories, but when is somebody ready to hire a tax planning company? Should they do that day one? Are there things that they need to do to set up their business before?
Yeah. Well, let me just kind of tell you a little bit like what I consider a tax planning company, and then, can answer that question. But so, a traditional CPA firm, a lot of them are just tax preparers. And that's great, right? They prep your taxes. They do a great job of that. But often business owners are going to them looking for something different than that, right? You go to your CPA and they're like, oh, my CPA never talks to me, never replies to my emails. Like, and there's no strategy. There's just nothing there. It's just tax prep. And that's, and that's what they do. What like a tax planning firm like mine does is, yes, we prep your taxes, but we have a process where we're working with you all year long, where we have a quarterly process where we're meeting with you. It's like, okay, what happened last quarter? What's happening this coming quarter? And we're consulting around that, strategizing around that, and doing something about the tax bill, not just calculating it and telling you what you owe, right? So that's kind of the difference there, right? Big difference, totally different services. And so, yeah, the people that are wanting to work with the tax planning firms are the ones that want that, more of that strategic white glove kind of experience, right? And, I would say engaging with a tax planning firm really starts to make sense when you start having some income tax problems, right? Like, and by that, I mean, like, you're having success, making some money. It's like, oh man, these estimated tax payments keep getting bigger. And you're like, there's gotta be something I can do, right? And that's when like, hey, I can come in and I can probably show you some stuff that you don't know anything about, right? And here's some things to consider, and we can help you do all this stuff and that kind of thing. So it's I would say tax planning comes in Well, when you got some income, and that's when tax planning really matters, right?
Well, and at what level of income, though? Do you primarily work with businesses who are over 1,000,000
Yeah,
in
so
revenue or
our avatar, just depending on the industry you're in, anywhere from I would say 500K plus. And the reason we say that is, when there's more income in there, there's just more value we can drive in there, and that's the situation to we're really looking to come in and add a lot of value. Of course, if you have no income, well, you don't really need to do any tax planning because there's no problem there, right? And so, yeah, we're totally not the best fit for like just startups because there's not a lot of tax planning that really needs to be done there. Now, at the same time, I love startups. I love business, and that's why a lot of my content's out there too. That helps, you know what I mean? Helps startups. Like, there's a lot of nurturing in there too, right? Like, and where I nurture clients, put out a lot of content and information. It's like, hey, whenever if you're ever ready, I'm here, right? So yeah, while I give guidance to people that are starting up all the time, we're typically not the best fit because it's just not going to, the value is not going to be there.
Yeah. I wanted to ask because another big trend, I don't know if it's really a trend, but I work with a lot of people who are from the US but are digital nomads. And I'm moving into that, moving that direction myself. I have dual citizenship with Thailand.
Nice.
So I'm looking at different tax
Cheap
strategies.
to live there, right? Cheap to live there, isn't
Oh
it?
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, your shoulders just go down when you get like when
I
I step
always
off
heard
the
like
plane.
if you make like 50K, you're like you can live
You
like a
don't even
king.
have to make 50K.
Yeah, okay.
Trust me. Like, I mean, that's if you want to you can have a private driver 24/7 for $500 US a month. You can get a beachfront apartment, fully furnished, $300 US a month.
I'm heading to Thailand.
Yeah, you can eat for, $20, $30 max a day. If you're eating out all the time and eating gourmet meals, like, it's just unbelievable, and everything's super healthy and fresh, and you just eat whatever's
Yeah.
right there, right? Yeah, I mean, I remember last time I was there over the holidays, not to get into the weeds and go off on too many tangents, but we had 5 of us in my family, and our dinner was $35 US, including tip, drinks, meal, and that was
You had a party and it was
and we
30
ordered too
seconds.
much food, and we ordered double the amount, so we really for 5 of us, we coulda gotten away with probably 17 to $20.
Nuts.
Yeah.
One of you couldn't have eaten for that here.
No, exactly. Yeah, so there's a really great quality of life, and I'm in that stage where I have my own business. I also have a daughter who's going to go to college next year. Some of my families, my mom's and my stepdad are in Thailand, so I wanna see them. So all these things. So thinking about those factors and other people, I've been looking at alternate strategies, such as getting an e-residency in Estonia because they have really good, corporate tax structures and other countries like that. So do you see people coming to you with those kind of questions? I know it can be
Yeah,
being
yeah. I mean, like, you'll even see stories about this kind. If you go on the internet and look at stories, especially of wealthy Americans making even somewhat contingent type plans, right? Because yeah, and not to get into politics or anything, but the world, you know what I mean. The world is kind of in a precarious place, we
Yeah.
feel like, right? And in many ways, we spent the last since World War II kind of globalizing, and now we kind of seem to be pulling apart a little bit with trade barriers and all those things, but
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it is much more of a concern of people of like geography now. And the cool thing with technology is that geographies doesn't matter as much, right? When it comes to service and business. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different things like that, different countries that especially try to entice Americans and stuff into like retiring there. Or like Belize is a big one down in South America. It's an English speaking country, and like if you got like $2,000 a month, like in retirement income, they're like, come on down. You can do your, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like a US expat kind of haven down there.
Mhm.
One that's actually inside the US that's a really interesting tax play. And I had a guy on my podcast a few weeks ago that is doing it. He was living in Puerto Rico. So
Oh.
full blown US territory. So you're still a US citizen, but major tax benefits. So professional service, business like yours, right? Like you working from a laptop and you can serve the mainland, right? Serve the United States. If you did that, you would actually pay a 4% flat income tax. That's what you would pay. So your income would not be subject to federal income tax at all, and you would pay Puerto Rico 4%.
Okay.
You have to live there 183 days, which is like over half a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of, that's kind of interesting play. Like you're considering some of those geography moves. The issue with, being a U.S. citizen is as long as you're a U.S. citizen, they're going to want to tax your world income. You'll get credits, for other foreign taxes and stuff you pay, but your income is still subject to U.S. income tax if you don't drop that passport.
Yeah, yeah, so there are complexities. So Puerto Rico, that's an interesting play. Heard it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, the issue with Puerto Rico is the infrastructure. I mean, it gets like wiped out every 5 years by a hurricane. And, it's like you'll see stories, every like fall or like, the whole island's out of electricity or whatever.
Right, right.
So that's the flip side of it. But if you go, I've looked at real estate and stuff online down there. There's plenty of expensive apartments and condos and stuff for Americans.
Uh,
Uh,
and what about tax plays like Delaware? That's obviously been a big place that people incorporate for
Yeah, yeah, and
tax.
what I would say, setting up like your corporation in Delaware and stuff like that, that's much more of a, it's not really a tax play because really ultimately whatever states you're making your money in, they're going to tax it in those states. That's much more of a just a like a I don't want to say a secrecy thing, but like there's some benefits for having a Delaware corporation that aren't necessarily tax benefits. It allows more secrecy where people don't necessarily know who it is, but that's not really a tax play, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I live in California, which is obviously very regulated. So for those listeners who are, a wide majority of my listeners are not in California, what do you recommend when they are starting their businesses or when they're reviewing their businesses and their assets? Should they just go ahead and set up in their state where they're doing most of their business? Or if they are a truly global business, should
Yeah.
they think about, what are other things they should think about?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, obviously it's a specific decision there, but some things to think about. I mean, the vast majority of people are just setting up LLCs in their own state because it just doesn't need to be more complicated than that. I have entrepreneurs that come in every once in a while. It's like they've done some of their own structuring and stuff, and I think people make it more complicated than it needs to be, especially early, where it's like you've set up all this structure and I'm like, okay, you've got all these different entities feeding into each other. And I'm like, but there's like no money. So like, why are we even doing this? Like, we didn't need to do any of this.
Yeah.
So it's, with that caveat, you need to be careful there. It's like, guys, it doesn't have to be complex. It really, really doesn't. The vast majority of companies can set up an LLC. They start making some money, consider an S Corp election. That's just telling the IRS you want to be taxed a little different as just a standalone LLC. The S corp, in my opinion, what I tell people is, you need to be making 100K a profit or something, and that's really about the time like making that S corp switch really there's benefits to it. Starts to make sense. You making a little less than 75 or 100K, you probably just need to be a sole proprietor and tax that way. It's just not worth doing any other stuff. So yeah, I mean, like LLC and an S corp model will get you a long, long way. um, and that's really like, now of course there's legal protection issues and stuff, and that's not my day outside of taxes, but like just the simple S corp model. Unless you're really looking at blowing this thing up into like a public organization or whatnot, or doing more than
Yeah.
25+ million, like S corps about all you need. Now there's caveats to everything I just said there, but S corp model, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So, what are some other things that people do need to consider? So, we talked about the structure. Are there specific systems that they do need to have set up, not to go overboard? We all know people who've set up, $25,000 podcast recording studios before they even do an
Yeah.
episode.
And
You're
release
talking
one
about,
episode, yeah.
yeah, and you're talking about setting up really complex organizational structures and spending a lot of money on that before you have any revenue, so we don't need to do those things. So, what are some things and some structures and frameworks that people should
Yeah.
have in place? And is that something you walk people through?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's certainly I give my clients advice on it, right? Like once again, while I'm advising clients on money, I'm also coming in here looking at their business. I'm like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Or you know what I mean? Just giving them suggestions, right? For in my area, it's some kind of just basic system that gives you timely financial information. Something as simple as a QuickBooks subscription that costs $50 a month or whatever, right? Like it once again does not have to be complicated. And you can hook your bank account to it, all the transactions pull through, and you can have good data, and you know what's going on. The other big one that's not even, not money, but it's just a great CRM system. You need the ability to track all that. And I didn't do that for a lot of years, stupidly enough. But now I got an amazing one. I use HubSpot and all their AI tools. And like I said, all my notes go in there. It's great to I can nurture relationships where it's like, hey, we just had a conversation. Oh, I want to talk to Annika. I'll check back in with her like a month or whatever. And it just automates that stuff where it's like, oh, I need to reach out to her today. And it allows me to really provide a great experience for my clients and keeps me organized. And also it's HubSpot's not just a CRM, it's also, and there's lots of others than just HubSpot, but it's where I manage my sales pipeline too. It's when I'm doing marketing, I get leads coming in and I'm what stage they're in the pipeline, and making sure that you're not doing marketing to generate leads that you let just fall through the cracks anyway.
100%.
Lots of people do that. It's like, I've spent all this money on marketing, but you're not even following up with half of them. So what do you, kind of thing. So it's having a great CRM and just process around that and around your sales process will allow you to actually capture all the stuff, that you're paying marketing dollars to get. And there's a lot of holes in that bucket that people don't realize.
Interesting. Well, I really like the fact that you've been able to talk to us about a lot of different issues within business structure and not just tax and financial planning. Yeah, because these are all of these things have to be considered together.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and like I said, why I'm a long time CPA and tax has been my thing for a long time. I consider myself an entrepreneur, not like an accountant. Like I am an accountant. Like I'm a right.
Right.
I've owned a lot of different businesses over the years in real estate and property management, and done a lot of different things in real estate. And I love the game of business at heart.
Nice. Is there one piece of advice that you could give us all right now that would give us peace of mind in our businesses today?
That's a great question. Some days I'm searching for peace of mind, especially. I mean, every day there seems to be something significant happening in the world or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Here's what I tell you is that the best thing you can really do is bet on yourself in holding yourself accountable. I'm a huge believer in self-development, continuous learning, staying curious. That has really allowed me to do everything that I've done because I've never stopped learning. And I'd listen to books and podcasts and stuff all the time. And I would tell you is as long as you keep investing in yourself like that, the world's going to change. The world's going to be chaotic, probably even at faster speeds than we can even imagine. And, you need to be building yourself. This is your biggest investment here is you. And, the more and more valuable you make yourself, whether, in skills and whatnot, that's to me your only security really is doing that because just with AI, we don't, I can't even tell you like I said earlier, I have no idea what the world looks like 5 years from now, let alone 20, and just literally what AI will be capable of doing. And so, that can be scary, but at the same time, that technology is going to make the world so much wealthier because it's going to allow us to automate so much stuff that humans don't have to be involved in or freed up to do everything else, right? And so I think I think the future is very bright because of that. What I'm concerned about is the midterm and the transition to that, where you're going from humans doing everything to humans doing nothing. Probably a lot of problems in between there and economic problems and wars and things like that. Because anytime you get chaos like that, it's not good. So that is I'm very optimistic long term. The midterm has me a little concerned.
Yeah. Oh, I think we all feel that. So
Yeah.
on that note, we are going to have people, of course, go to your website. It'll be in the show notes. And there they can just learn more about your personal strategies, book a consultation, and you offer value even if they're not quite the right fit. At least you can get some great advice.
Yeah, 100%. I'd encourage any listeners if, this is interesting to you at all, just book a call with us. We happy to have a conversation with you and give you a little advice, see what's going on, and see if we could be a good fit to, fit together, to work together or not, right?
Yeah.
So if you want, check us out at squirestaxplanning.com. On the podcast side, if you want to ever check that out, it's Behind Their Success. You can check it out at my website, just under my name, PadenSquires.com. Of course, you can also find me any social media, just search my name. I'm out there doing my thing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Peyton. This has been a fun conversation. Of course, I always have to ask, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
My gosh. I always go to the classic early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's Ben Franklin. That man was unbelievable. Like he was like world famous in the 1700s, which is like
Yeah.
impossible to be, right? And he was that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And just, he's one of my intellectual heroes, and just how he handled his life. And he was a man that literally developed all kinds of these self-development tools for himself, in 1700s, of like rating himself and trying to improve himself. And what, like, he, to me, he's like the godfather of like self-development. So,
Oh, so cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. I know I'm going to be staying in touch with you to get
yeah,
some advice.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to.
And, looking forward to listening to upcoming episodes of your podcast. And I want to thank everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story, their journey tomorrow, most likely. If it's a weekend, it'll be Monday. But thank you so much for giving us your time and attention. We really appreciate it. Please leave us a rating, review, follow on your favorite platform. Helps discoverability, and it helps us help other people along their journeys. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.